I knew all the monsters in my life, but what I didn't know was the buyers. Like a normal person will turn into a monster. My name is Keisha Head, and I am a survivor of human trafficking in the form of commercial sexual exploitation of children. I was born to a schizophrenic mother, and my life started at a disadvantage. Staying with her, I stayed with her for 2 years, and a lot of things happened because of her mental illness. She wasn't able to care for me, and I was placed in the home with an aunt. My aunt, she really didn't want the responsibility of her sister's 2 kids because it was me and my brother. And it was very, very hard for her to care for us because she had her own kids and her own life. And she looked at us as a burden, and I always felt like I was a burden. So she became very abusive because I was acting out, and she couldn't understand why I wasn't grateful that she took me in. But as a child, you don't look at things as being grateful. You just know that this is your life, and people are supposed to protect you and care for you, and that didn't happen for me. I was sexually abused. I was mistreated physically, mentally broken down. There was no building me up, so she would just be very mean to me as a child, and I became very angry. The sexual abuse, it started at the age of 4, and I remember being angry and feeling very nasty and just walking around feeling nasty. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have a voice. I didn't know how to tell anyone what was happening. So at the age of 12, I came to the conclusion that I had had enough. I did not understand the anger from other people. I did not understand why I was a punching bag for people. And I decided to fight back, and my fighting back came out in anger. So I lashed out at her because I had told her her sons were touching on me, and I was 12, and I had told her, and she did not do anything. And so when I got angry at her and I yelled at her, she sent me to my mom's house, and that's when I realized what dysfunction really looked like. My mom was mentally ill. She wasn't there. She would go for days at a time. She didn't wake me up for school. It was my responsibility now to get up and get my clothes and food. A few days went by when I was waiting for her to provide these things, and I realized, uh-oh, she's not going to do this for me. I have to go to school myself. So I got up and I dressed myself and I went to school. And after a few months, my teachers noticed a difference. And they noticed that I wasn't coming, that my attendance had declined. And they reached out to Child Protective Services, and I was placed into foster care, going to a children's shelter, and sitting down at intake, the caseworker, she looked at me and she said, "You're a throwaway." And I remember like feeling, okay, that's trash. When you throw something away, nobody wants me. Why do, so I just felt like trash. And I went through that from group home to foster home, looking for someone who actually wanted me, and not me not being a nuisance, me not being judged for my behavior. If I fought, I would get kicked out of the group home. So I learned at a very young age that you had to be perfect in order to be accepted in the foster care system. And no one wanted a troublemaker, and no one wanted someone who's angry. I went through this, I ran away, I got placed, I ran away. From the age of 12 to the age of 16, I went through 42 different placements. And so at the age of 16, I was in high school in a group home that I kind of liked, and I met my high school sweetheart. We were in love, but it was just very hard to be in love and date and do things like that in a group home. Then I became pregnant, and I remember being in the group home and them trying to talked me into having an abortion, and then I had my child's father saying, please keep my baby, I'll take care of it. And so and here I am in the middle. And so I had my baby, and I just noticed myself come undone, like mentally undone, because what I wanted and what I needed were just so unreachable. Like I didn't know how to get it and obtain it for myself. Here I am with my first love. So we broke up because it was just too much for him, because at the same time he was a child and could not take on the responsibility, the adult responsibility. And I had to give her to him. And I remember thinking, wow, I am just like my mom. And I just became very angry, because here I am angry at my mom. How can I do that? My daughter's going to be angry at me. And I ran away from my caseworker. She said, there's one more place you can go, because when I became pregnant, I had to leave that place because they did not cater to pregnant teens. So I had to go to another place. And when I had my baby, I had to leave there because I was no longer pregnant, and it was Families First was for pregnant women. And then I had to go to another place, and I was just tired of going from place to place. And my caseworker, she said, there's nowhere else for us to put you. The next place for you to go is a mental institution. I ran away with a group of girls. We went to an area called Roswell, Georgia, and we stayed in abandoned apartments. We actually had like an abandoned apartment where the maintenance guy would give us an apartment and the lights would be on. We would stay there, and when they would rent it out, he would tell us, no, go to this apartment. So he was facilitating the whole thing. He just felt compassion for a group of kids that didn't have anywhere to go. And so, but that didn't last, of course. Our resources after a few weeks got depleted. I called my godmother, and I asked her, could she help me? And she was like, no, Keisha, you've been acting out, and you had this baby, and your life is just so da-da-da-da-da. She told me she had a friend who had been trying to contact me, who I had grew up with in church. And I called my friend, and I asked her, you know, I've ran away. I don't have any help. Do you know anyone who could help me? Well, it didn't start off as an ask. When I called her, she was like, hey, I lost contact with you. Where have you been? And she told me about her life, and I told her about my situation. And she said, well, I know someone who can help you. Where are you at now? Come to my house. So I used the little resources that I had to get to her house, which was far on the other side of town, which was almost impossible to get to her. So I got to her house. I stayed there a few days. She called him, and she took me down to Atlanta and to the strip club called Dream Girls. And I remember seeing the signage saying Dream Girls, but I didn't know that it was a strip club. And so we went and we met this guy. He got out of a Mercedes-Benz. He had on all this nice jewelry. He was an older guy, very pleasant, very mountable. So when you met him, no red flags or nothing alarming led out to me. He wasn't. He was very nice. She introduced me. She said, "This is Keisha, and Keisha, this is Sir Charles," and not even thinking the name of pimp. I didn't even know what a pimp was, to be honest with you. And she left. She got back in the car with our ride, and she left me there with him. And he's like, let's go for a ride. I remember that. I got in his car, and I just began talking to him. He made me feel very comfortable. Everything came out. I told him I had been through these group homes. My mom is crazy, and my aunt abusing me, and everything came out. And I thought I could trust him, because I didn't know that there were people in our world that plotted against you or had plans to manipulate you. I didn't know that I thought adults helped you. even though I had been in some abusive situations, I never viewed everyone the same. I gave everyone a fresh start, and I trusted everyone. And so I told him about my daughter. He took me to get my daughter. I hadn't seen my baby in about 9 months. And we took her to the playground, and it was just a normal day. And I remember thinking, wow, he took me to get something to eat. He told me how beautiful I was. He told me, I was talking about my clothes. I don't have any clothes. You can get clothes. I'll get you clothes. You don't have to be homeless. You can take care of yourself. And I was like, yeah, oh, really? Like, you think so? Because I was just that naive. We took my daughter home. And then we went to the house, Sir Charles's house. And I saw other girls my age, some younger. They were busying themselves cleaning up. They had their rooms. They were helping each other doing hair, and I fit right in. Sir Charles introduced me, and then he left me there with the girls. And they were getting ready for work, and they kept saying, "We're getting ready for work, and we have to be there at such time." And I was like, "Work? Where you work at?" And they wouldn't tell me. And so I fell right in. They start doing my hair, and they start what size you wear? And so I start putting on clothes and dressing, putting makeup on, and I've never wore heels. I've never wore high heel shoes before. And when I looked in the mirror, I was like, wow, I look pretty. I look cute. And so Sir Charles came back. He put us all in the car, and some girls had their own cars. We rode to the strip club, and we went in, and that's when I saw this inside of an adult entertainment establishment. And I saw the girls dancing, and I saw the guys and the music, and you just get caught up into this atmosphere. And Sir Charles gave me a drink, and I drank the drink because he noticed that I was really nervous. And after I drank the drink, I calmed down a little. And he said, well, you can make money. You want to make some money? And I was like, yeah, I want to make some money. I need money to buy me some stuff. And so that night I stripped, and I made a few $100s. I woke up the next day. We went out to eat. He took us to a fair. We went and got our nails done. We went and got clothes. Because I had to get everything. So now I had a wardrobe. I had my own shoes. I had my own wardrobe. And I didn't ask. He took the money that I made from the stripping, and I didn't even ask about it because he had. So I was like, okay, he used that money to buy me all these things. That lasted 3 nights. That happened. And on that 3rd night, he told me, he took the girls to the strip, and I was about to get out of the car. And he said, no, you have to come with me. You can't go strip. Because I noticed that the stripper girls were a little older than the other girls, and the other girls had to go somewhere, but I didn't know where they were going. So he said, you have to come with me, and I have to take you somewhere else because you're underage, and I can get in real big trouble if you're stripping and they catch you. And so I was like, okay, I have to do something else. I didn't know what the other else was. So I just went with him, and he took me to Stewart Avenue. I knew what Stewart Avenue was just by hearing people talk about it, but I didn't know I just thought it was for older women who were drugged out, and that's where they were. He took me to this corner, and he told me to get out the car, and before I got out, he gave me all these rules. You will charge this much, you won't talk to pimps, and I said, pimps? And he said, yeah, you won't talk to pimps. He said, what you think is going on here? And he started changing to this other person. I'm like, okay. So I didn't argue with him because I knew not to argue with adults. And I had seen some things, what he had did to the other girls, like a night before he had slapped a girl. But he was telling me all these things to do, a list of things, and they were coming so fast at me. And then when he said, you were charged such and such for one sexual act, such and such for another sexual act. I said, no, I'm not doing that. And he said, oh, you're going to do it. If you don't do it, you know that little girl you showed me? And he started talking about my daughter. He said, I'll make sure something happens to her. And I'm like, what? And I said, okay, just let me get out the car. So I got out the car, wobbled out the car, because I still couldn't really get the shoes thing down all the way. And so here I am with these clothes on, these skimpy clothes on the street, where the biggest thing that was going through my head, what if someone sees me? What if someone sees, like, my child's father stayed on Cleveland Avenue, like my child's sweetheart, and Metropolitan was right down the street. I'm like, oh my God, my baby father's gonna see me and people gonna laugh at me. And I didn't have time to even think about that, because I had to get out that car and do what this man said, or he was gonna harm my daughter. I got out the car, walked up with the other girls, and I didn't catch it that night. What caught me was a police officer, because I was the only one out there. Everyone else was in cars, because Sir Charles said, the only way you get arrested if they see you. You need to be in and out of car at all times. And I was like, okay. But I was out there, and I didn't get in any cars that night. And the police saw me, and he shined a light on me. And he said, hey, you, what are you doing out here? And Sir Charles had told me to say that I'm waiting for someone. So I told him I'm waiting on someone. And the police officer looked at me, and he said, you don't belong out here. You belong on Peachtree Street, where the pretty girls are. And I don't know what changed in my mind that night, because I thought the police would see me and help me, because I wanted to tell him, there's a guy over there looking, like, but I was too scared. I was terrified. And when he drove off, I went and told Sir Charles. He said, I can't, he said, I don't need to be out here. I need to be on Peachtree Street. And Sir Charles already knew what that meant. He said, oh, you got the go-kart. You got the go-kart to go to the white girl track. I went down to Peachtree Street and 14th and Crescent, and it was just a different from Metropolitan. Now I felt like I could hide a little and do what this guy told me to do. And I just did it. And that happened every night. I would be so tired. And when I get off the track, I would go home and sleep. When I wake up, it'd be time for work again, because I slept the entire day. And I would do that over and over. And then when I'm on the streets, so many things was happening. Like each night, one night I'm being robbed. One night I'm being attempted kidnapping. I remember 2 incidents of him being violent to me. The first incident was the night when we came home from me saying, no, I won't do it. The very first night when I was on the track, we came home, he handcuffed me to the bed, and he beat me with a belt. And he said, I'm going to name you Choicey, because I want you to know you don't have no choices. Whatever I tell you to do, you're going to do it. And he beat me. And I was like, okay, this guy's kind of crazy. And that's how I got the fear. He put that fear into me. But this night I told her I was running away, and she told him. He took me to a cemetery. He made me undress, and he put me out. And it's like a Westview cemetery around my neighborhood. And he made me walk around naked in the dark in the cemetery. He said, you want to run away? He said, you're not going to have anything on you. He said, all those clothes I bought you, take them off. So I took off all the clothes, and he put me out in the cemetery, and I was out there for hours. He drove off, and he took me deep into the cemetery, and he drove off, and I think I had a mental breakdown. I was out there screaming, and I was scared for people to see me because I was naked. And so I hid, and then I saw him come back, and he opened the car door and said, get in. And you don't think about running no more, because you know next time I know people who dig graves out here. I make sure I make you put you in a grave or something. I was like, what in the world? Wow, this man could kill me and put me in a grave, and nobody even know what happened to me. I stayed probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And one night, I went to a hotel room with this guy, and he raped me, really bad. Pistol with me, he raped me, and I had gotten unconscious, and I woke up in the hotel room. I had urinated on myself, and I had called Sir Charles. I told him I beat me real bad, sodomized me, did all these things to me. Come get me, and I told him where I was. He took me home. He ran me a Bubba Bell, and I was crying. You'll be alright. You okay? And I knew, like I need to go to the hospital. Like, why don't this person see that I'm hurt, or this is not love, this is not caring about nobody. So I said, I have to go. And I went to work the next night. He made me go to work the next night. And I remember talking to this client, telling him stuff. I was like, I can't, I'm sorry, here's your money back. I can't do it. I just need to go. Don't keep like this man. Want this guy to this hotel for a week. He paid it for a week. Try to have sex and anything. And I stayed there a week. I just stayed in the room for a whole week. I said, do something. And I didn't go back to Sir Charles. And I left. I didn't leave the light. It was. I knew of a way to survive. So I started bringing clients to the hotel, money and living like that. I said, okay, I'm gonna start an escort service. Be my home. And that lasted for 10 years. And that's why I was. I cannot express in words the importance of healing. That has changed my life. It's changed me as a person. It's changed my relationships with people, because I walked around with a lot of hate and a lot of anger. And when I hit my rock bottom in 2006 by going to prison, and here I am for the first time in my life since the age of 12, I don't have to worry about bills. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep or what I'm going to eat or a career, because I got felonies in the midst of all of this. So I don't have to worry about where I'm going to get a job and how I'm going to support my family. I was able to my world was quieted, and I could just focus on, why am I here? Why am I in prison? And for a long time I did the blame game. It's because my aunt did this. It's because my sexual abuse and my trafficker and this and that. But that happened many years ago. But why am I here? This is me. And I had to learn what I was responsible for and what I wasn't responsible for. There were some things that I was responsible for, and taking ownership for that. I could have stayed in this group home and tried a little harder. Even though I was hurting, I could have tried a little harder, but I didn't. And just learning not to forgive myself. That's where I had to start. I have to forgive myself for this, and I have to forgive them for doing this to me. So I got out of prison, and during prison I took classes. I went to college. I took culinary arts, and I did all these skills and got these certificates. And I was like, wow, I could do this. I could have a life outside of human trafficking or prostitution. And I walked out the gates, and reality hit me again. I was like, uh-oh, what do I do now? I've been in prison for 3 years. The first thing came to my mind was prostitution. That was the first thing, because no one came and got me. I didn't have any resources, somebody to come pick me up and take me home. I didn't have that. I had to leave prison and go to a shelter. So it was like, okay, but I made the decision that no matter what, no matter where I go, no matter how broke I am, prostitution is never an option for me. Never again. So what do I do now? And so I got a job with 14 felonies, 2 weeks out of prison, got a job. I was like, wow, that was easy. But for many years I made excuses. I can't get a job, I have a felony. But 2 weeks out, I got a job, got money, got my own apartment, got one registered in school, and got married. 9 months out of prison, I'm married. A few months later, my husband and I having a baby. And I was like, this is wonderful. And so one night, and I was up about 12 o'clock in the morning, and a documentary on young girls came on Showtime. And I was like, what in the world? Like, this is really isn't in with me. Like, this is still happening. I'm an older woman. But this is to children. Like, I know, because I've never trafficked children. I didn't even think about like these women were older, like a lot of strippers, things like that. I didn't think like I didn't even know I was a victim. That's when I realized I was a victim. This was all a game. This was, and it became real. And I started crying, and my husband came, what's wrong with you? I was like, this happened to me. This is what happened to me. And he was like, wow, like. Really? And it was something. For him. Are you serious? Are you telling me this was me? It was me. So a lot of stuff came out even in that. But my husband loved me like real love. You can get through this. But I wasn't. But I was already healed. For me, I got this anger inside. Sir Charles, gosh, I have to tell somebody about this because I had been indicted, not subpoenaed to testify against Sir Charles, because I felt this guy's helped me, and I'm not gonna tell somebody. I think he's a good guy. It helped a lot of people. Until I started remembering. What if I wasn't compliant? Then I would have saw another side of him, like other girls did. And I said, okay, I gotta do something. Sex trafficking for me is the only thing I could overcome and live with sexual abuse, being beat, but sex trafficking was the only thing that derailed my life from all my hopes and dreams and aspirations. Because society stigmatizes you, and once you have this background, people look at you just totally different. Like you're not human, and you're not capable of being something other than this label of prostitute or whatever they label you as. And people need to know you can overcome this, and you can live life and have joy after such traumatic experiences.